Hello and welcome to a special Talking Politics from the Conservative Conference in Manchester with me, Robert Peston. And I've just interviewed the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch. Actually, probably won't be in the piece. I called her Badenoch first, and she doesn't like that because there's no bad, apparently, in Badenoch. Now, you'll see around me, we've got actually the only other Tory leader who's being celebrated here. Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, airbrushed out. The only leader they're celebrating is Margaret Thatcher. In my interview with Ms. Badenoch, what I mostly focused on were two issues. One, the challenge of anti-Semitism and racism in this country. And secondly, how worried she is that this party of Margaret Thatcher is seeing desertions of councillors to reform and a terrible shift of voters to reform. So here's my interview with Kemi Badenoch. Kemi Badenoch, very good to see you. After the murders of Jews just up the road from here, you said the following: we need a wholesale new approach to tackling misinformation and bias in our media. That sounds quite sinister. What did you mean by that?
Well, I've been very clear and even spoken to the BBC Director General about it. Quite a lot of the reporting about the conflicts in the Middle East has actually not been accurate. And I think it's important that people know what's going on.
But you don't think it contributed to the murders?
Well, when I went into the synagogue filled with the congregation of people who had been at Heaton Park, that's one of the things that they said to me. So I'm not resiling from that at all. They are very worried about a lot of the rhetoric they see on the media, and it's not just BBC, Al Jazeera, so much BBC Arabic translations actually being sanitized. Very, very hostile, incitement to violence, incitement to murder.
But what are you talking about? Fines or what? I mean, how would it work?
Well, today I'm not talking about that as a policy. I'm identifying an issue, not identifying the solution. But we need to make sure that Britain is a safe place for Jewish people, as it always has been. This has been a sanctuary.
You've talked about the racism you've encountered in your own life. In the light of the murders of the Jews that we've seen, how pernicious is racism in this country?
This is not a racist country. And when I've talked about racism in my life, I've actually said that it's been very minimal. Every country has this. There's nothing unique about the UK in that respect. I think that this is one of the best, if not the best country to be black. But that doesn't mean we should be complacent. I talked in my speech on Sunday about how we're a multiracial country, but we mustn't become a multicultural country where people have different values and retreat into fragments of society. We need shared loyalties.
So you would, however, accept, I assume, particularly since you talked about the sensitivities of the Jewish community, that there are acute ethnic sensitivities. Against that backdrop, wouldn't you caution Robert Jenrick not to use phrases like, "I didn't see another white face"?
Well, this was a secret recording from a much longer conversation. It's taken out of context. Rob has been very clear, today about what he was talking about. And this is something which I talk about as well. We need to make sure we are an integrated society. This is not about skin color. It is about culture. It is about values. It is about what makes our country so great that people from all around the world want to come here. I don't want us to lose that.
But if it is a point about integration, and given what he said, are you saying that there should be a cap on the density of non-white people in a particular area?
That's not what...
But it's what it sounds like.
Well, that may have been what it sounds like, but that's what happens when you take comments out of context. What we are worried about, remember, this isn't something he said today. This was in March when we were all talking about Birmingham, where rubbish wasn't being collected, but the politicians were all protesting about Gaza. We have MPs elected on a sectarian platform in Birmingham. We have MPs in Birmingham campaigning for an airport in Pakistan. They're not interested in what's happening with Birmingham Airport. And that's what we mean, that if we have a country that is going to be cohesive, we need people, especially those who are elected, focused on national interest, not what's happening everywhere else around the world.
It's 2 years since those appalling murders by Hamas of 1,200 people in Israel. We are seeing protests on university campuses against Israel's actions in Gaza. Should those protests have been banned?
I think today, of all days, there should not be those protests.
But should they have been banned?
Well, the government has actually said that it's going to start doing just that. I do think that we need free speech in this country, but people are using free speech and protest as a cover for inciting violence, intimidating others. That's not what protest is for. So I don't agree with people protesting today, neither did I agree with them doing it on Yom Kippur, especially after we saw that Jewish people had been murdered on the streets of Manchester.
Your members polled believe that your best hope of having power anytime soon is a pact with reform. They're right, aren't they?
No, they're not right at all. And I don't believe a lot of these members' polls. I remember the members' polls that said I wasn't going to win the leadership election, and here I am now a year later. What we need to do is make sure people understand what the Conservative offer is. If Conservatives start saying, we're having a pact with reform, we might as well be saying vote reform. That is something I'm completely against. There will be no pact. I was elected to get us back into government. It's going to be, a tough road, but that's what I'm doing. No to pacts, no to coalitions. We need to focus on what the Conservative offer is. Reform wants more welfare, more nationalisation. What kind of pact are we going to have with a party that's pushing left-wing economics? We need fiscal responsibility. We're the only party that can deliver that stronger economy.
Your councillors aren't listening to you. 18 already this morning, and there may be more, have deserted you. Power is slipping from you as we speak.
Do you know what, Robert? I saw last year MPs jumping to Labour because Labour was doing well in the polls. People who jump around because they're jumping around polls are not people who can deal with tough times. If they cannot deal with tough times in opposition, how are they going to deal with tough times in government? We need people who can see through difficult times, not jump into whatever lifeboat they think is passing by. We're going to get to the destination. It's going to be a long, difficult journey. It always is after the kind of defeat we had. I'm sorry to lose people on the way, but we're going to where we need to get to, and we need to hold our nerve.
Now, big change of subject. We're in an artificial intelligence, industrial and social revolution. Mm-hmm. How do you use AI in your own life?
It is now my new search engine. So, so I've stopped going to Google because I find that AI provides more context, so it stops me from the follow-on searches. But you have to be careful because it's not always accurate.
Did you ever use it to prepare for encounters like the one we're having?
No, I don't think they would work. Do you remember, your AI hallucinates, but maybe I should get it to create a fictional Robert Peston chatbot, and I can have more conversations to prep me for this. I haven't thought about that.
We'll see which one is more interesting and more fun. Kemi Badenoch, really good to see you.
Thank you, Robert.
So that's my interview with Kemi Badenoch. I suppose what stood out for me most was her criticism of the BBC and other media organisations for, she says, distorting coverage of what the Israeli government, what the Israeli Defence Force is doing in Gaza, and she laid open the prospect of new regulation of the media under a Tory government, obviously an issue that we'll want to explore further. Meanwhile, Tom and I will be back with a new edition of Tory Politics tomorrow, which will take place shortly after Kemi Badenoch addresses the conference here in Manchester. See you then. Goodbye.